He held my hand and whispered, "Only 3 days. Finally, everything's mine." His smile was too calm, too satisfied, as if he'd already buried the past and carved his future in stone. And in that moment, something inside me twisted. It wasn't the words themselves, but the way he said them, like a man who had waited too long for something forbidden. I felt his thumb gently trace my skin, a gesture he hadn't used in years, a gesture that should have comforted me, but instead made my heart beat in sharp, uneven rhythms. 3 days. 3 days until what? He thought I wouldn't ask. He thought I'd stay silent like I always did, but silence was no longer safe around him. Not after everything I'd noticed these last weeks. All the whispers behind closed doors, all the half-burned documents in the trash, all the strange calls he declined whenever I entered the room. And now we were standing outside the lawyer's office, the cold air biting at my face. His grip tightened as if he feared I might run. "Just 3 days," he repeated, with that same chilling satisfaction. And finally, "It's all mine." I forced myself to smile back, pretending I didn't hear the greed beneath the softness, pretending I didn't notice the small tremor in his voice that betrayed urgency, not joy. The inheritance, the properties, the offshore accounts he thought I didn't know about, everything was building towards something he wanted desperately, something he didn't want to share with me. We walked to the car in silence. He opened the door for me, another rare gesture, and leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear. "Don't make things complicated. Just act normal these 3 days." I didn't respond. My heartbeat felt like footsteps running through my veins. Because earlier that morning, before he even woke up, I'd found something he thought he hid well. A letter. Not from a lawyer, not from a bank. No. From someone with a name I'd never heard before, yet recognized instantly as dangerous. And the letter didn't mention me. It mentioned him, and what he owed, and what would happen if he failed. And suddenly, I understood why he'd been so unusually sweet, why he'd been checking on me at night, why he'd started bringing me coffee in the mornings, his hands soft, but his eyes always calculating. He needed me. Or more precisely, he needed something I had, something connected to the inheritance, something the court required from both spouses, my signature, my confirmation, my quiet cooperation. And he thought I'd give it. The drive home felt suffocating. His hand rested on my knee, and for the first time, I flinched. He noticed. "You're nervous," he murmured, glancing at me. "Don't be. Everything will be over soon." I looked at the window reflection. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, alert, too alive. A man watching his future dangle by a thread. A man who had just 3 days to secure everything. A man who had enemies close enough to choke him if he failed. And I realized he wasn't planning to take everything with me. He was planning to take everything from me. The moment we arrived home, he made a call. He stepped outside, thinking I wouldn't hear. But the window was slightly open, and his low voice leaked through like poison. "No," he said sharply. "She suspects nothing. She'll sign. I'll make sure of it. Just hold your people for 3 days." A pause. A long, tense pause. Then he whispered, "I know what's at stake. Trust me. I won't fail again." Again. That word hit me like a blow. Again. What had he already failed? Who were his people? And what would they do if he failed again? I stepped back from the window, my hands shaking. I looked around the living room as if expecting shadows to move. And that's when I noticed something new on the table. A folder. Not hidden, not protected. Almost as if he wanted me to see it, but he underestimated me. I didn't touch it. Instead, I opened my phone and texted the one person I never thought I'd contact again: my brother, the one who disappeared from our lives 5 years ago after getting involved with things better left unmentioned, as he once warned me. I typed only 2 words: "I'm in trouble." He replied within 30 seconds: "I know. Don't trust him. I'm coming." My blood ran cold. How did he already know? And then the door opened behind me. I froze the moment the door clicked open behind me, my phone still glowing in my hand. I didn't turn immediately, afraid my face would betray the message I had just sent. He stepped inside quietly, too quietly, watching me with that unsettling calm that always meant he was calculating something. "You're standing in the dark," he said softly, almost gently. "Are you feeling all right?" His voice was warm, but the warmth was hollow, like a blanket hiding a blade. I forced a smile. "Just tired," I murmured, slipping my phone into my pocket before he could see it. He approached me slowly, the way someone approaches a skittish animal. Tender, patient, pretending to care, but ready to trap. His fingers brushed my cheek. "3 days," he whispered again, as if casting a spell. "After that, you'll never have to worry about anything." His touch lingered too long, and when he finally pulled his hand away, he looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher, one part triumph, one part fear, like he was staring at both his salvation and his destruction. Later that night, I pretended to sleep while he worked in his office. I could hear the rapid tapping of his keyboard, a drawer sliding open, the sound of glass, maybe a drink to steady his nerves, and then another phone call, one-sided, urgent. "I told you I'm handling it." "No, she doesn't know. She won't find out. She'll sign the papers. She always does what she's told." My jaw clenched. Always does what she's told? Not tonight. Not anymore. I waited until the house grew silent and then slipped out of bed. I knew the floorboards that creaked, the ones that didn't. I'd learned silence in this house the way others learn music. His office door was slightly ajar. A thin line of light spilled into the hallway. I peeked through the crack, and my breath caught. He wasn't alone. A man I'd never seen stood beside him, leaning over the table, pointing at documents. Tall, thin, expensive coat. A face too calm, too sharp. Someone used to power, someone who didn't need to raise his voice to threaten. If she refuses, everything collapses, and you know what that means. My husband swallowed hard. "She won't refuse." "She can't refuse," the man corrected coldly. "If she does, the investigation reopens, the property stays frozen, and you lose everything. We all lose everything." Investigation? Frozen assets? Lose everything? My breath grew shallow. They continued speaking, but the words blurred. I stepped back, heart pounding so violently I thought they might hear it. Something bigger was happening. Bigger than inheritance, bigger than divorce. Something criminal, something that needed my signature to stay buried. At dawn, I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating. A single message from my brother. "Don't let him know you contacted me. Meet me tomorrow, somewhere public." Public. He was protecting me, or protecting himself. Maybe both. I was about to type a reply when my husband entered the room carrying breakfast: fresh coffee, toast with honey, fruit he cut himself. He never cut fruit. "Thought you needed energy," he said, placing the tray beside me. "We have a big day." "Why?" I asked, carefully. He smiled, that same unsettling smile he'd worn outside the lawyer's office. "Because today we prepare. Only 2 days left." He kissed my forehead. His lips were cold. When he left the room, I stared at the food suspiciously. I didn't touch it. Instead, I went to the mirror. My eyes looked different, sharper, awake. The version of me he relied on, the quiet one, the obedient one, was gone. I got dressed slowly, thinking through everything: the phone calls, the documents, the strange man, the mention of an investigation. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to start. His mother. She always hated me. She always warned me that her son never does anything without a reason. And, more importantly, she knew all his secrets, even the ones he kept from himself. I drove to her house without telling him. The sky hung low and gray, as if waiting. When she opened the door and saw me, her face stiffened. "What do you want?" She snapped. "Truth," I said. "All of it." Her eyes narrowed, the hostility fading into something else: recognition, maybe fear. "So he finally dragged you into it," she muttered, stepping aside. "Fine, come in. But remember, you asked for this." And as the door closed behind me, I felt it. The shift. The moment a woman stops being a wife and becomes something entirely different. A threat. The living key to a secret everyone is desperate to hide. She led me into the living room without offering tea, coffee, or even a seat. She paced instead, rubbing her arms as if the air itself had turned colder. "You should have left him years ago," she said finally, "before all of this." I didn't react. I needed her to talk, not gloat. "What is he involved in?" I asked quietly. She stopped pacing. Her eyes flicked toward the window, scanning the street as if expecting someone to appear. "Do you know why he married you?" she asked. The question struck me like a slap. "Love," I said through clenched teeth. She shook her head slowly. "No. Leverage." My stomach twisted. "What leverage?" "Your family name," she said. "Your father's assets. Your late uncle's properties. Your signature that ties both families legally for inheritance and tax purposes. You were a bridge, a shield, a doorway." My mouth went dry. I wanted to deny it, but deep down, something clicked. A puzzle piece sliding into the only available place. She continued, voice lowering. "He fell into debt years before meeting you. Bad debt. Dangerous debt. Money he never could repay. So he made deals with people who don't forget and don't forgive. When he met you, he saw salvation. When he married you, he bought time. And when your uncle died and left everything in limbo, he saw a way out." The room felt smaller, pressing in on me from all angles. "What happens in 3 days?" I whispered. Her lips tightened. "Final audit. If he can't secure legal ownership of your portion of the inheritance, the authorities reopen the investigation into your uncle's death." My blood froze. "My uncle's death? It was a heart attack." She laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "That's the official story." I stepped back. "What are you saying?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she approached a cabinet, unlocked a drawer, and pulled out a small black box. She placed it on the table without opening it. "Your husband is dangerous," she said quietly, "but the men behind him, they're much worse. He's not the mastermind. He's the pawn they're using to access everything your uncle left behind. And if you refuse to sign those documents in 3 days, you won't be the only one in danger. He will be too, because they will come for him." She pushed the box toward me. "This is everything I've kept, everything I've discovered, and everything he must never know I found." My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside were photos, copies of documents, bank transfers, and letters. Letters from my husband, written long before we met. Letters discussing debts, deals, threats, and one in particular that made my heart lurch violently. A letter that mentioned my uncle by name, and the words, "He'll cooperate one way or another." I felt sick. "You knew," I whispered. "All this time, you knew what he was doing." She closed her eyes. "I knew pieces, not everything, and I didn't want to admit any of it. He's my son." "Then why tell me now?" She hesitated. For the first time, she looked scared. "Because 2 nights ago, a man came to my house. I'd never seen him before, but he knew my name, my address, my son's entire history." "What did he say?" Her voice cracked. He told me that if your husband fails again, they won't wait for the audit. They'll take action. And he told me something else. She took a breath so shaky it frightened me. He said they're watching you, not because of what you know, but because of what you might find. I felt a cold wave wash over me. My fingers clenched around the box. I need to leave, I said. She didn't stop me. She only whispered, "Be careful. You have no idea who you're really dealing with." I drove home with trembling hands. My phone buzzed endlessly. Texts from my husband asking where I was, what I was doing, when I'd be home. His sudden concern felt like a noose tightening around my throat. I ignored him. I couldn't face him. Not yet. When I pulled into our driveway, dusk had settled. The house looked almost peaceful from the outside. But the moment I stepped in, I felt the shift. Something was off. Too quiet, too still, like the calm right before the sky breaks open. Then I saw him sitting in the dark at the dining table, hands folded neatly, eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Where were you?" he asked softly. Not a question, a warning. I shut the door behind me, clutching the box inside my coat. "Out," I said. He tilted his head, studying me the way a predator studies unfamiliar movement. "You missed our meeting today." "I didn't know we had one," I lied. He smiled faintly. "You know, you've been acting strange lately." "Have I?" His smile widened, but his eyes remained dead. "Yes, and people who act strange usually hide something." He stood up slowly, each step toward me measured, deliberate, dangerous. "So tell me." He stopped inches from my face, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What are you hiding?" My pulse hammered so loud I was sure he heard it. And then, my phone buzzed. He snatched it from my hand before I could react. His eyes scanned the screen. Then his expression changed. The mask slipped, and beneath it, rage. Cold, murderous rage. He looked at me, voice low and deadly. "Why is your brother coming?" The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady even as my heart pounded against my ribs. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe he just don't lie to me." His hand tightened around my phone until the plastic creaked. "Your brother never comes here uninvited, not without a reason. So tell me, what did you tell him?" I opened my mouth, searching for anything, any excuse, any thread to pull. But my mind was blank. A hollow ringing filled my ears. He stepped closer, his breath ghosting across my cheek. "If you've dragged your family into this, I swear," a knock at the door cut through the room like a blade. 3 slow, heavy knocks. My husband froze. Not with surprise. No, with recognition. He knew that sound. And from the way his face drained of color, he feared it. "Stay here," he said sharply. Then, catching himself, softened his tone. "Don't say a word." He moved toward the hall, shoulders rigid. The house felt too small, too fragile, as if it were holding its breath. I pressed my back against the nearest wall, clutching the edges of my coat where the box was hidden. Another 3 knocks, this time louder. My husband stopped just short of the door. He didn't open it. Instead, he spoke through the wood, voice surprisingly calm. "What do you want?" Silence. Then a man's voice, calm, polite, terrifyingly casual, spoke through the door. "I think you know why I'm here." My husband's hand twitched, a subtle warning. I felt the weight of every secret in the room pressing down, suffocating, the shadows stretching unnaturally, as if listening. The voice continued, "I'm not here to hurt anyone, yet, but I'm here to collect what's owed." My husband's eyes darted toward me. Panic, anger, calculation, all colliding in a silent war. "We can talk," he said finally, voice brittle. "We can negotiate." The man outside chuckled softly. "Negotiation is over. Time is up." My fingers clutched the box tighter, everything I had uncovered, Every secret, every hidden deal, it all suddenly felt like fuel in a fire that could ignite at any second. My husband's hands trembled, the first crack in his armor. You don't understand. 3 days, it's almost mine. Everything will be mine. I stepped forward without thinking, feeling the surge of something raw, something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Defiance, fear, adrenaline, the spark of vengeance. Not everything, I said, voice low but unwavering. The man outside made a soft, approving noise. Ah, you finally speak. My husband froze. His control, his careful manipulation, all faltered. I realized in that instant that the balance of power had shifted. 3 days, he had said. 3 days until he thought victory was certain. But now, everything was moving faster than he anticipated. Shadows in the corners of the room seemed to lean closer, listening, waiting, ready to swallow the lies and the truth alike. My husband backed toward me, eyes wide. You don't know what you're doing. I control everything, everyone. I held up the black box like a shield. Not anymore. Outside, the man's presence felt heavier, more dangerous, like a storm pressing against the walls. And then, without warning, the doorknob began to turn. The doorknob rattled violently, but the door didn't open. My husband's face twisted in panic, realization dawning that control had slipped entirely from his hands. The black box in my grip felt impossibly heavy, every secret it contained now a weapon. Outside, the calm, measured voice spoke again, closer, sharper. Open it, or I will. I took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of adrenaline surge through me, and stepped between him and the door. My hand shook as I pressed the box against the wood. No, I said firmly. You take nothing. The doorknob twisted again. The door shuddered. A shadow flickered behind the frosted glass, moving too fast, too precise to be human. Then, silence. The tension in the room thickened, pressing into my chest, suffocating. My husband stumbled backward, tripping over the carpet, eyes wide, lips parted in a silent scream. I felt the box vibrate slightly in my hands, almost alive, almost aware. This ends now, I whispered, my voice steadier than I felt. The voice outside chuckled softly, almost approvingly. So be it. And then, with the force that shook the entire house, the door splintered, cracking along the edges. A dark figure appeared in the frame, impossibly tall, its presence swallowing the light, filling the room with cold. My husband screamed, reaching from me, but I stepped forward, planting the box firmly on the floor. Shadows poured from it, moving like liquid, wrapping around the intruder, binding it, holding it at bay. The figure thrashed, a silent roar vibrating through the walls, and for a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. Then, the shadows recoiled, returning to the box, sealing it. The intruder staggered back, human form flickering through the darkness, and vanished with a whisper of wind. Silence fell again, thick and heavy. My husband collapsed to the floor, trembling, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. What did you do?" he gasped. I looked down at the box, now still, innocuous in its blackness. "I protected what matters," I said quietly. "Everything you thought was yours is gone. And it will never be yours again." He tried to rise, but the weight of his lies, of his control, crushed him. The room no longer felt like a trap. It felt like a tomb for his secrets. Outside, the night held its breath. The man who had knocked, the presence that had threatened, was gone, vanished, as if it had only existed to test us, to reveal the truth. I exhaled, slowly, finally feeling the tight coil of fear in my chest loosen. I stepped over my husband, black box still in hand, and moved toward the front door. The storm outside had passed. The danger was gone, for now. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was no longer the one being controlled. For the first time in years, I held everything in my hands, and I would never let it slip again. 3 days had come and gone, but the outcome was mine. I opened the door, stepping out into the quiet street. Night air crisp against my skin. Behind me, the house stood silent, its shadows retreating. I walked away, leaving the past, the lies, and the fear behind, carrying only the black box, and the knowledge that nothing and no one could take it from me again.